Alright, hello again, classmates. This is another little entry I'm doing here. It's going to touch on, I believe, I already mentioned it before, and it's connected to this particular photograph, yet again, from Annette Coon's Family Secrets, the, Coronation Day photograph. And it was a point that was mentioned before with, I think it was Kelly or Jasmine that brought it up regarding the fact that Annette comes across as ungrateful for the most part throughout the whole. Well, I haven't finished the book yet, but throughout most of the pages we've had to read, and they all seemingly seem to be connected to different ideas in the photographs themselves, such as at the end of one paragraph, she says to the reader, hmm, she says to the reader what a disappointment she must be to both her mother and father for failing to live up to the image both both projected upon her. It's on page 69. She writes, what of the daughter who refused to smile prettily at the judges, refused to want to be picked out from all the others as a winner, and yet who found utterly unbearable the humiliation of losing? What of her? That little girl got fat, looked terrible in everything she wore, and answered back. What a disappointment to a mother. And this is related to an earlier photograph, a pageant day photograph. If you can see that, where she writes about the feelings, laid again much like a Coronation Day image, about how she is basically living out the manifestation, where she was a living embodiment, living through her mother, who dressed her in both this dress and the previous dress, where she looks way too young for being a 7-year-old. But I thought it interesting, though, that for the most part, Annette Coon isn't really making across as ungrateful because perhaps the show get the interest across that she's not really remembering pleasant memories. That's where I think, at least, that's where the idea that she isn't really being grateful for what her mother and father did do for her is coming across as being, because as I said before, whenever writers tend, a lot of autobiographies, they choose one specific subject and tend to leave out all the rest of the details and just choose to remember that one specific subject, which is in Roald Dahl's autobiography Boy, is recalling where he is recalling his childhood and the horrors of living in a English boarding school system. Now, there are a few pleasant memories connected with that, but the majority of the book is basically showing that it's basically a real life version of of the wall, so to speak, with the whole if you don't finish your meat, you can't have any pudding type of thing. Um, Also, Annette Coon goes on for details about the coronation in the chapter Meeting of Two Queens, chapter 5. And it's interesting that sometimes certain chapters tend to be a lot longer than others, and this is just one of them. The previous one was Mandy. And for Meeting of Two Queens, it almost makes me wonder that this was like the last time that the British monarchy has had a coronation, because as many people are aware, Elizabeth II is still living and still with us. So 2013 will be 60 years after this coronation, should she make it to 2013. But I also think it's interesting that she talks about the two sides of the coronation, as the official regal side with the parades and the idea of celebrating something inherently their own, and also with the idea of just basically being out in the street and having fun, which is what's in this image right here. I apologize for the poor lighting. afternoon sun and all that, as compared to the photograph on page 93 of the royal family, which, as you can see here, in case you didn't see it in the previous photograph, they're much more stiff, and they're actually playing the part. And it reminds me, when I look back at this type of image, of whether or not the monarchy is like the last significantly British thing that they have over there. Music, and it seems as though that they've been influenced too much by American culture. The whole world has over the last 150 years, I would say, to the point where there's a sense of identity loss and culture in a lot of parts around the country, and England is just one of them. We'll go with my favorite example, the Beatles, for instance. Where they came from musically was influenced by American R&B, blues, folk, and country western music. And yet Liverpool, England, in particular, was chosen as the mecca for culture mecca of the world last year. Which I'm not criticizing at all. I'm just finding it interesting that when it comes down to Annette Coon discussing the coronation day as being coronation day, it is just as well that this might as well have been the last time that England was truly united as a country, because since then things have been not quite that pleasant, particularly in the 70s, and the 60s weren't that great either, as far as the English government went under Harold Wilson, which I'm supposing that Annette Coon will probably touch upon later on in her book, but it's just interesting to look back at this. Till next time, classmates.